In today's episode of Today in World War II, April 25th, the Brits get some early warning about a major German parachute attack. Princess Elizabeth joins the war. Patton creates another faux pas, but this time it wasn't his fault. Finland gets rid of all the Germans in their country per treaty with the Soviets. The U.S. 8th Air Force conducts its last heavy bombing raid on Germany of the war, and Berlin is now encircled as of today's date. Let's get started. Okay, so on April 25th, 1941, the British codebreakers at Bletchley Park were able to extrapolate that Crete was going to be the target for a major parachute assault, and they were able to do this not so much because of their Enigma prowess, because they still were still spotty about how much they were actually able to decode, but there was a lot of lax Luftwaffe cyber discipline, and so the Brits were able to extrapolate that this was going to happen, and it was going to be a parachute assault. Now, as we're going to see in upcoming videos, unfortunately, foreknowledge did not allow them to stop the attack from not just from happening, but actually succeeding. And that's just one of those cases where they didn't have enough available resources. There was a lot going on, including North Africa, Rommel, the whole, Cairo being under threat. So under the circumstances, they weren't able to take advantage of their advanced intelligence like we were able to in the Pacific at Coral Sea in the Battle of Midway. But I don't fault the Brits on this. I mean, they did the best they can on that. But it just goes to show you that even in 1941, that the Bletchley was already producing lots of majorly good intelligence. On April 25th, 1942, 16-year-old Princess Elizabeth registered for war service in Britain. Good for her. And listen, no sarcasm here, okay? I mean, think about how it would have been if the other guy was still king, right? Um, the one who was married to the pretty much a slut who was sleeping around with everybody, including von Ribbentrop, and had clear Nazi sympathies. Okay. King George and the stuttering king was amazing as a leader and as a symbol of resistance, symbol of British fight and so forth. And Princess Elizabeth was a good soldier in the sense of the word that she also wanted to be there. That family was amazing. Now they're a bunch of nutcases after the war. Okay, just watch The Crown, read stories about. Okay, I'm saying they're all woo, wow, but then the war, amazing. Okay, and on April 25th, 1944, Patton creates another faux pas, but it wasn't his fault this time. I'm perfectly willing. Look, I love Patton. I think he was the best Allied general of the war on the European side, not counting the Soviets. And um, I think that he was his own worst enemy in a lot of ways. Otherwise, it took him away from being the command thing. And yes, I have heard the complaints that the Allied troops felt that Bradley was a better, general to care for them more. I don't dispute that, but I do think that if you have a strategic genius and a tactical genius that's commanding your armies, you take advantage of opportunities that other generals won't dare to take advantage of. And I think that he was the better general. I don't think that we should have let Montgomery, suck us into Operation Market Garden, for example. I think Patton should have been ahead of the American side on in Overlord and not put in at the end after the breakout was already happening. But I digress. Here, he was at a welcome club in England as a guest of honor, and he thought that his visit was supposed to be unofficial. So he spoke relatively freely about his vision of what's going to happen after the war. And he wrote that the United States, or he said, the United States, United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union would together rule the world. Well, there was this pesky reporter there who didn't write down the quote verbatim. and he did not include the Soviet Union. So when this was reported, it was reported with the deletion of the Soviet Union. And so it appeared that Patton was disrespecting the Soviet Union. Well, Patton's not an idiot. He knew that the Soviet Union was going to be a major player in the war. It was too strong, too militarily strong. So Patton would have said that. But so a reporter does a bad job, and then Patton, of course, is blamed for it. And that was almost the final nail in his coffin. Eisenhower almost had lost his patience, but luckily he did not. On April 25th, 1945, Finland reported that all German troops that had been inside their country in the Arctic had been pushed out. This was in accordance with the armistice that the Finns signed with the Soviet Union to end the continuation war. And I thought it was interesting that they did it 10 days later than the Soviets demanded. So it's kind of like, okay, we're going to give you the middle finger. We did what you wanted us to do, but we didn't do it exactly when you wanted to do it. So take that. So good for the Finns. Hyvä Suomi. And on today's date, April 25th, 1945, the U.S. 8th Air Force conducted its last heavy bomber raid on Germany. I bet those pilots and crews were very thankful that that was over. You know, they weren't going to do any more raids because at this point in time, why would you want to risk your life when the war was already over, correct? But this ended the long storied history of the 8th Air Force. It started in 1942, went all the way through all the heavy casualties they took because of deep daylight raids into Germany with no fighter cover. And look at them now. You know, Americans persevered, the RAF persevered, you know, and now it's time to celebrate soon the end of the war in Germany. And finally, speaking of ending the war, April 25th, 1945, units of the Soviet First Belarusian and the First Ukrainian fronts met outside of Berlin, which completed this encirclement of steel, and there was no way that anybody was going to get out. And Hitler was trapped, were trapped, and now the stage was set for tons and tons and tons of bad Hitler memes in his bunker, talking about anywhere from Britney Spears being criticized to whatever, you know, with Hitler going off with subtitles that frankly are hilarious. And you know, this today's date set the stage for all those bad memes. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I will talk to you tomorrow.